Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Shout Out Show, the SOS, with me, your host, Preacher Moss. First and foremost, I want to comment on yesterday's show. I had some sisters that reached out to me and really gave me some insight on the idea of how they're feeling during this whole episode of COVID, the protests, the whole idea of social justice. And it was really enlightening because I came away from the conversations understanding that these women felt very empowered before these happened. And it's really interesting in terms of framing leadership on potential and talent as opposed to framing it around situations. So for those sisters that hit me up with that, I want to thank you. Also, as usual, I like to thank people for coming back to the show. And there's a reason why I do that. We're not a show that we stick to the same topic. We may find some through lines on the topics, but for the most part, we're able to turn and kind of take an idea and twist it around a little bit, tear it apart and make it something different, and still be able to lend it some value to it, if you will. And that's really what this show is about. The French word is a French word. It's called bricolage, and it is the ability. This is not a religious reference, but it's the ability to go and look at something or step into a situation and find value in it. Today's show is interesting, and it's talking about something that has been it's really been bothering me the last 2 years, and that is, brothers and sisters, the absence of the concept of a team. Like, we're not seeing solid teams rally for things that we want. And it's interesting because with COVID-19, we actually saw a situation where there's no organized sports. Like, we're not watching organized sports. If you're watching organized sports in the United States, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, then you're probably watching repeats. And I didn't realize how important it was for that model. That model is something that served us very well. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to give you a little background about where I come from. Originally born in Washington, D.C., many of you know that. But I grew up around teachers. And I grew up around people who found their way to success. My father is one of those people. The library where he used to clean out the trash, he winds up being the personnel director. So he goes from the trash guy to the guy that's sitting in on whether they fund cancer research or kidney research. So he's one of those guys. But one of the things that my father always taught me was this whole idea of teamwork. And when I say teamwork, I don't use it lightly. The Arabic word for teamwork is alfriqa. And I looked that word up, and at one point I thought it was, an attribute of Allah, and it's not, but it talks about teams and panels, which means that there's an expectation that you're going to grow. And I'm going to give Brother Hassan, thank you for popping out on the show. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. But it's this expectation that when you have a team, you grow things. You grow loyalty. You grow information. You grow impetus. You have inspiration that buoys and it wraps around and inspires other things. And watching the situation between COVID and the protests around George Floyd, around police brutality and things like that, there are some very eerie parallels. And let me explain to you how I come to the idea of teams versus collectives, because right now we have a lot of collectives. The idea of team came to me when I was very young. There was a movie out. Some of you may have seen it. Some of you may have not seen it. I'm going to recommend you guys see it. It's probably free on YouTube. The name of the movie was called Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars. Again, that's Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars. What was interesting about Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars was it was a story about a fictional Negro League team. Now, let me give you the stuff that's not fictional about Negro Leagues. Negro Leagues developed out of the fact that they were kept out of the major leagues. Coming into the early 1900s, when baseball became a job and profitable, of course, the white owners at that point in time, more importantly, the white players at that time, felt that there was no way that a black person should have that job when a white person was there. It wasn't about talent, brothers and sisters. It was about privilege. Let's stop there. As a result, the esprit de corps and entrepreneurship and the willingness to play in one of America's greatest games, looking at it as a birthright in the United States, baseball was huge. And so you had the development of Negro baseball teams. Back to my point. Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars was a fictional Negro baseball team, but it was different. It was different because it started out as a guys, if you will, they played on different teams. They felt like the owners, if you will, were not in their best interest, and they broke away and they started their own team. All the best players from all the Negro teams, they decided it was a collective, and it turned into a team. And they tried to play other teams. They played barnstorming. That was the term back then, barnstorming, going around the country playing games, exhibition games, stuff like that. It was, however, one of the earliest reminders of what a team was, because they endured hardships. They had a goal. They aspired to that goal. And when hardships hit, it was interesting because they didn't break into a collective. They had their problems, they had the issues and differences of opinion, but the idea is that we must stand up to management. To do that, you can't have a collective. You must have a team. The owners in this case were, if you will, what I would say, the collective. And it's interesting now because when we do leadership, we talk about leadership now, even in the White House. I dare to find people that actually say that people are working in the best interest of a team for America. I was just talking to the young man, a comedian named John Adams. It's interesting that we lack the ability to come up with a winning team for some of our social justice issues, like education. Why can't we have a winning team that makes sure that children in school have good education and have good nutrition? Good education, good nutrition. Why can't we find a team that comes up with that? We don't need a collective. People with a winning spirit, people with a galvanizing idea who are willing to work that idea till it comes through. Not people that come in with agendas. When I began to really was looking at this thing, there's this piece that really resonated with me. And it's the idea of value. Have we become a nation that is so indebted or so wedded or so addicted to value, creating individual value, that we can no longer be teams anymore? That we no longer see the merit in working with one another? Because in my mind, it doesn't take more to, it takes two people to be on a team. Tennis, you can play doubles, that's a team. Badminton, 2 people, that's it. Curling, 2 people. But I'm talking in the larger scope of how we, in some way, wrest away this idea that the collective is going to get the job done for the things that we're seeing and the things that we're needing. I've been looking through a lot of things. Even religion now has been a breakdown to collectives. We don't have teams in religion. We all believe in God. We believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but sometimes the collective destroys that. That we must see things our way in order to advance any kind of progress to me, is backwards. I'm not saying it's backwards or it's it's just not functional in terms of a world that's very communal. Like, we live in a world whereby we should have a certain scenario whereby all of us can come together and figure out what are winning teams. And it's interesting because in the United States, we celebrate certain culture. We celebrate the idea of being a part of something. We celebrate the idea of winning in mass. The teams that you see these days are not even social teams. They're military teams. They're police teams. It's my philosophy, and I could be totally wrong, that what you saw with George Floyd was a team mentality. Let me say it again. That was a team mentality. The players on that side looked at that situation and said, this is a winning hand, this is a winning play. And it's interesting because these are some of the things we're beginning to fight, but more so, not just fight. We need to do a thorough investigation. We need to do a very complex, complicated, and engaged investigation about what happened to the teams, like real teams. Like just recently, we had something that happened with the Supreme Court in terms of the Dreamers. It was a 5-4 vote. It was a 5-4 vote in terms of the Dreamers. But it was interesting because when people watched it, what did they say? The controlling vote switched teams. It went from a collective to a team. And I'm saying there needs to be more of that. In the African American community, what we've lacked in a number of years, and even in the Muslim community and communities of color, is there's always been an effort to make sure that teams don't develop. There's always been some kind of universal coincidence to make sure that we don't think the same. Even with this effort with Black Lives Matter, and you can have your opinion on what Black Lives Matter means to you or your family and things like that, but you know, it's such a large term that it begins, if you will, to be questioned. We have folks going, what does that actually mean? Or what are you really trying to say about Black Lives Matter? You know, because there's so many aspects of Black life. We're not a monolith. But can we, in some regards, frame enough of identity to at least, for a little bit, be a team? So I'm asking, and I'm going to be following this up, because some of the things that I see are indicative of we have broken infrastructure. And when I say broken infrastructure, it means that we don't operate the same. You can look at manufacturing in the 20s and 30s, the idea of unions. Like we don't have any unions, strong unions like we used to. The National Football Players Association is not really a strong union. The NBA Players Association, a little bit stronger. But it's the idea that they can be manipulated by economics. And are we a country or a world that's evolved or devolved into the fact that the idea of individual accomplishments, the idea of individual acquisition will usurp the fact that the world needs teams to get things done? Now, I want you to take, I just want you to think a little bit. In your life, who are your teams? Most of your teams were your family, right? Those are the people we counted on. Those are the people we loved. You know, you ever think about the fact that your family was your original team? And what was done for the original team? How did the original team act? I'm an only child. I remember how my father acted. I remember how my mother acted. And what was interesting is, as a team, what distinguished us is we all had a role to play. So my parents went to work. I went to school. Their job was to bring home the bacon. My job was to learn and get an education so that when my time came up, I would be adequately prepared to be able to bring home the bacon or at least have the appropriate skill sets to go out and be competitive. What I see now is while we have all these things out here, we have all these collectives. The collectives are like the talk I gave about a little while ago about Hollywood, how Hollywood is broken down into two people, not two people, but two personalities. One is the buyer and one is the seller. The team is the buyer. The team is the buyer. The collective is the seller. And what I say is the seller is because a collective, these are people who galvanize or share, they're motivated for a particular thing. The team expresses and evidences a goal, a format, a path of priorities. The collective is like, hell, well, we think we need to save trees. Well, you know what we need to do? We need to make sure dogs don't run in the street. And when that task is achieved, then the collective goes away. A team is different. A team has the functionality of personalities, accountability, and responsibility. And I'm saying maybe, just maybe, if we can get back to the idea of teamwork, we get back to the idea of teamwork, maybe socially we're going to be able to produce some different things and different outcomes. Now, this is no knock on the collective. I'm just saying that maybe right now this is not it. The collective is an adjective, but a lot of times we use it as a noun. Collective goes in front of things, collective bargaining, collective identity, um, collective attributes. We put the collective in front of it, but somehow, some way, we made the adjective a noun. A noun is a person, place, or thing. Adjective describes a person, place, or thing. So I'm beginning to break this down a little bit, and it comes to me because I saw something in a video that was shocking. It was on Twitter. Maybe you saw it. Maybe they took it down. The original one was a little black baby and a little white baby running towards one another to give each other a hug. Beautiful, alhamdulillah. That's children. That's the beauty of children understand teamwork. I want you on my team. In fact, I was just talking to my friend. One of the greatest things when you're a kid, particularly if you're a boy, when you play sports, one of the sweetest sounds you could ever hear is somebody goes, "Hey, you're on my team," or "Hey, you're on that team," or if you win, you go next team up. You see how nobody goes, "You're on my collective," you're on their collective. Who's the next collective who wants to play? Think about it. The most improved team or the most improved collective? That's the point I'm saying. That word, in many regards, and even the placement of it in society has been problematic, to say the least. But I think we're making not even we're making a mountain out of a molehill or a molehill out of a mountain, however you look at it, because nobody's stepping up to say these things. We're in the era of leaderless organizations. We don't have the Jesse Jacksons or the Martin Luther Kings or the Mandelas or the Malcolm X's or the Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, Roy Wilkins. We don't have them. Elijah Muhammad. We still have Minister Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan does great work, but his suffering is the fact that we don't have teams anymore. We have collectives, so you have to talk to smaller groups that are not empowered to get the job done in the hopes that you can make them a team. We don't have that. These protests are not led by central ideas. This protest over here might be about police brutality, but it might be about something else. This one over here might be about justice for women, but it's housed under George. And we're all human beings, and I get that. But doggone it, where's the team? Where are we going to find the will, number one, and the commitment to produce winning teams? I talked about Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the Negro Leagues, whether you research them or not, will always be undervalued in terms of the will of men to develop and reward their own value. They were the first team that I recognized as a child, and it was fictional. But it gave me a pathway to understand about true Negro League baseball. And even the collective of owners, they duplicated, of course, the owners of the National Baseball, Major League Baseball. Okay, that's fine. But it was the idea that even those guys could galvanize around the fact that players of immense talent were being shut out of professional baseball because of the color of their skin. And while they may have been collectives, as I pointed out, in Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars, race, or the fight against racism galvanized a team. And that team produced, if you will, it produced somebody that could break up the collective, that can frame identity, that can frame purpose. I always laugh, and we were laughing, so the death knell to the team, the Negro baseball team was Jackie Robinson, because Jackie shifted the narrative, and it was trying to prove yourself to white people that you were a good player, that you can handle the hardships and deal with the racism, as opposed to just being able to play ball. So listen, everybody, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to take a commercial, cause for the pause, if you will, and stay tuned. Be right back. Okay, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I had the wrong video. Oh, forgive me. I thought I had a commercial lined up for you. I did not. Well, let me. You saw something of that. We started our writing series master class. Funny right now, I'm happy to say that we started out with a core of 4 students. We're already up to 8. If anyone is interested in joining our group, I just took a call about it today. It is not too late. Saturday is going to be our last day for taking any kind of registration. The reason is we want to keep the group small and intimate because I want to develop a team of writers who can be a collective, but a team of writers who will be able to speak to one another's challenges in writing, their strengths in writing, and weaknesses in writing. So if you ever wanted to do comedy writing as a gateway to doing large-scale writing, when I say large-scale writing, people need to understand that you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Comedy writing is one type of writing. 9 times out of 10, you won't be writing for a TV show. You'll be writing to an opportunity to do a TV show. And this is what we do. That's what we show. But let me get back to my point because I see my time is running out. The last thing I want to talk about the scope of team and why teams are important. Teams represent competition. Teams represent competition. And a team right now that's talking about social justice, police brutality, they have to be competitive in a mindset that they want to win. Collectives want to make a point. Teams want to win. So I would suggest wherever you are in your life, whatever type of cooperative efforts that you do for social justice, might be for your family, be clear that you want people on your team, not your collective. You want people who understand that our goal is to win, that we have winning goals, that we're looking for winning outcomes. We're not looking to work for a situation. Because the beauty of a team is once this task is done, you go to the next task. And once that task is done, you go to the next task, and so on and so forth. What do you think your mom and your dad were doing for all those years? They were a team. Even when they ain't like what each other was doing, they were a team. They could see the forest for the trees. And I had one brother go, well, my parents, listen, brother, if your mom and dad weren't together, your mom got with your grandmom, and there was always the impetus for a team because they wanted to win. They wanted to see the good things in life. When I say the good things in life, I'm not talking about money. I'm just talking about the ability to hold your head up high. I'm talking about the ability to breathe free air. I'm talking about equality. I'm talking about justice. I'm talking about waking up and not having to look over your shoulder. I'm talking about waking up and not having to worry about someone taking something from you. And most importantly, I'm talking about the ability to get up and have bricolage, the ability to get up and develop and create value. That, brothers and sisters, is the difference between a collective and a team. That's it for today. I'm Preacher Moss. Thank you so much. If you need any information, go to my IG page and you can look up Funny Right Now. That's the name of the course, comedy writing course. And other than that, I want you to think, really, really think about who's on your team, not who's in your collective, who's on your team. And for selected groups, all groups, I really want us to get back to the essence and the importance of teams. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with leaderless organizations. I'm not saying that. They have their place. But the best leaders or leaderless organizations are what? Teams. that don't require central leadership. They do require the commonality to get a job done. And once that job is done, then I go to the next job. Team, yes. Collective, take care, everybody.